Hi, I wanted to chat with you today about children's and families and youth work in the wake of the lockdown. We've gone through something no one else in living memory has experienced. A pandemic which paralysed our country and the whole world with multiple lockdowns and a sea of ever-changing restrictions to navigate. We had to not only close the doors of our churches, but also our homes, as we were told to
stay at home.
What a painful time when relationships were put to the test in heartbreaking scenarios, mixed with separation, loneliness, confusion, and death. For our churches, it's been a mixed picture. Some churches responded quickly by asking the question, what do we do now? Some of us acted out of an instinctive positive attitude that says nothing's going to stop us now, while others of us were like rabbits in the headlights, frozen to the spot, hoping it would pass quickly so that we could get back to normal. But we're still waiting for normal, and it's been 2 years. So this video will hopefully help you to see some positive ways forward from wherever you find yourself today. Whether you've seen children, young people and families staying in touch with you as a church, and now they're reconnecting with your services and groups, or whether your church has lost connections and groups have stopped running and numbers are lower than they ever were. There are some lessons that we can all learn from around the diocese, and I hope you're able to take some encouragement from this video. Firstly, it's important to think about the reasons why people may have stopped coming to groups and services run by our churches. Number one, some people are still being careful. Some vulnerable and elderly people are choosing to stay away from gatherings because there is so much COVID around and they are fearful that catching it would be too much of a risk for them. We must ask, as a church, how are we connecting, caring, including and listening to these people? Number two, you might have heard some people saying that they've got out of the habit of going to church. Our churches have been closed for so long and were too slow to reopen, and now people have found other things to do. Well, we must ask, what could we have done to stay in touch with people and keep those relationships alive? And what will we do now to get back in touch with the people that we knew? Number three, some people have used the time over lockdown to reassess what they believe about their faith and what they do with their time. Was the church service a good use of time? Was it meaningful, important and relevant? Some people have answered that question with a no. And we must ask, how can we make sure that everything we do as a church is meaningful, important and relevant? And what should we stop doing because it's lost its way? Number four, some people say that the relationships that they had with the church were just not strong enough to last through the lockdown. The church was silent for too long as if it didn't care. We must ask, how can we nurture strong relationships that show we care? How should the church use its voice to be good news in the community? How can we be more welcoming and friendly and caring and meet people's needs? We only learn when we stop to reflect and make changes. So think on these things and respond to the challenges creatively and positively and with love. Let's hear from a couple of our centenary project workers. They've been proactive and have found ways to stay in touch with the children and young people and the families throughout the pandemic.
Hi, my name's Beth Henshaw and I'm a Centenary Project Children and Families worker for St Leonard's Church in Thriber. So during the various lockdowns and restrictions, we've placed a great emphasis on building and maintaining relationships with the children and families in our wider parish. So in order to do this, I have made videos and shared them on community social media and with the schools. I've visited the schools whenever I've been able to do so, even if this has been a bit flexible and doing things like classroom collective worship rather than whole school. And I even did confirmation preparation via Zoom last year. Classes visited the church in smaller bubbles for festival services, and we launched a muddy church so that we could meet outdoors in the churchyard. When we couldn't even meet outdoors, we gave out craft bags and had outdoor trails so that we could still maintain some contact with the children and families. And although there have been many challenges since 2020, we've actually been able to launch a Messy Church in school and a parent and toddler group, which was really vital for our area. And we did this, we applied for a grant so that we could have some funding towards that. And I've also been able to maintain contact with 3 primary schools, which I think is really important. And the children and families of our parish are very important to us, and so we've had to be open-minded and flexible and a bit pioneering in order to build and maintain those relationships and to share God's love with our community. So my advice to anyone would be, keep it simple, use what you've got, be open-minded, be flexible, think outside the box. And also, if you're worried about resources, try and see if there are any grants that you could look into. For example, local council or many sort of church-based charities as well. So that might be worth looking into as well. But don't get me wrong, we've had our challenges, especially with things like lack of volunteers, when volunteers have had to isolate or shield. And it is difficult to start things up, especially when some people may be saying that they are unable to help, and it's difficult to get new people interested when things are so on-off-ish with the restrictions and things. But keep going, keep the faith, keep open-minded, keep flexible, keep it simple, and keep sharing God's love.
Hi everyone, my name's Rachel and I'm the Centenary Project worker at St Lawrence Church in Hatfield on the far side of Doncaster. And I wanted to come and just share for a couple of minutes what it is that has meant that we've kind of kept in touch with our children and young people, and what meant that we didn't lose those connections with them during lockdown. I'd love to share a couple of things that I did during lockdown and that I've done as we've come out that have kind of helped keep those connections and grow even more. Obviously we did do things online, and I created a Facebook group to kind of keep that community feel going as we weren't together. And I'm sure lots of people will tell you that they did stuff online, and that's fantastic. And they delivered things to the families that they knew, and that's fantastic. But a lot of all of those things have kind of continued past the end of lockdown. I think the biggest thing that I did that I think has had an impact on what I'm doing now is that I took the opportunity to collect contact details. Now, this sounds like a really silly thing, but if we were doing Messy Church and we were asking people to sign up, I would be getting their email address and their phone numbers. If we did a trail outside of church, there was a prize, but they had to email for it, so we got more contact details. If we did anything at Christmas or a competition, we were gathering in those contact details. So now we have a big database of families and contacts in the local area, probably 300-400 strong, that whatever we do now, we can send it out to them. We can let them know that it's happening. We made sure that we did easy things that families could come to, that they felt safe at, so lots of outdoor things. Lots of things that didn't require a lot of volunteers, actually. We did a chalk path around the church. We did a Gruffalo trail in the churchyard. We did decorate your window for Valentine's Day competition. Lots of things that it was easy for families to kind of engage in. And I just made sure that I was out and about in the community as well, opening the church doors as much as possible, allowing people opportunity to come in. If they couldn't, being out there and smiling at everyone and talking to everyone and sharing stuff online and keeping those relationships going, whatever that meant. But as we've come back and we're now in person, actually, people want, they're craving that in-person stuff. So I hope that perhaps you can kind of look and think, what could we do that the community needs in person? Perhaps it's just opening up for free tea and coffees in the holidays, or crafts in church with all the craft materials that have stood in your cupboards unused for a couple of years. Open the doors and bless the community with it, and see where the connections start to grow. And you know what? I pretty much started with nothing, but my main way of kind of not losing connections and kind of building that connections was just to do stuff that gathered contact details. It sounds really simple, it sounds really impersonal, but whatever you're doing, think, how can I gather their email address so I can email them other things in the future? Yeah, I hope that's helpful. I know a lot of you wouldn't have had someone like me in your church during lockdown to help with that ministry. And my prayer is that as you come out and you start to think again about where are the children, where are the young people, how can we get them back into church? That God inspires you with some things that will really help meet the needs of your community. Because they may well have changed. They might not want a summer club or a children's camp where the children are left. They might be really anxious about leaving their children now. So maybe do something for the whole family instead. I think that it's time to reimagine some of the things and actually talk to the families in your community and see what they need. All right, bye now.
So, with or without a Centenary project worker, as churches we must build relationships. Start with contact details. Do what you can, but not what you can't. Build with what you have. Plan things that only need the number of volunteers that you have. Give yourself permission to do something different. Start from small things. Listen to people. Meet needs in your community. Be good news. Thank you so much to Beth and Rachel for sharing your stories. If you'd like to pick up this conversation with me or either of them, then do get in touch. And as you look to the future and plan what you might do as a church, I pray that you would hear God's voice behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Bye for now.